So welcome, Mike Anderson, to the Berks County Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here.
Thanks for asking me.
And you are a longtime musician here in Berks County. And in fact, you are up on the wall here in the Berks County Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Yeah, I guess that's an honor to be old and still playing rock and roll.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. So what can you tell us about your history as a musician here in Berks County? Where did you get started?
Well, I got started on clarinet back in elementary school, and the Zeswitz and the local band people, the local music educators were looking for new people to get into the band and bring them up through high school. So I started in clarinet. Long about when I was in junior high, they said, gee, we need some saxes in the stage band, the show band, or what they called it back then. So I made the switch over to saxophone. And somewhere in there, Fred Bernardo, that had Fred's Music Shop for a while, he and I sat next to each other in first grade, so we knew each other well. And we started playing in some bands back in junior high. And, I just made a lot of contact with rock musicians. And all the way up through college, I was working with rock bands and augmenting my college schedule in art, but music was my passion too. So. And I'm still doing it, sometimes with the old friends, sometimes with new friends.
Still playing today.
I'm still playing rock and roll. I have 3 great-grandchildren, but I'm still playing rock and roll.
That's amazing.
And other things, with the Berks Jazz Fest Horns, which is horns for hire kind of group. We play with a lot of the bands that come in from all over the country. And we learn our horn parts, and we practice with them the day of the job, and we act like we've been with them forever.
Oh, wow, that's fantastic.
That's fun. So, and that's mostly, it's jazz, but I would say it's a little bit more R&B than it is straight out jazz. So.
Neat. So you played with a band named Uncle Drew.
I did.
When did that band form?
Gee, that formed probably back in 1972. Fred Bernardo and Chuck Kao, the singer, and one of our keyboard players, Mike White, here got together. We had played together with a group called Stone Ground before that. It was pretty popular in the area. And then we went off our separate ways, and we decided, well, let's do something a little different. And we put that together. We got ourselves a bass player and a drummer. And a pretty aggressive schedule. We were playing sometimes 6 nights a week.
Oh, wow.
We were playing clubs in central PA and eastern PA. And then we'd play a week of high school and pool jobs locally. And so we had a pretty big audience, and it was a lot of fun. And we got together through the Magical History Tour thing to do a reunion concert, which panned out very well for us. We got to play a couple jobs over at Building 24, and so we kept our audience. Yeah,
you have the following still. It's amazing.
It was fun, and it was good to get together with the guys.
Where did the name Uncle Drew come from?
I was afraid you were going to ask me that. Well, there's a movie right now that's called Uncle Drew. It has nothing to do with us. It's about a basketball player. But back in those days, Chuck used to watch a lot of soap operas during the day and working at night as a musician. And there was a character in something that they called Uncle Drew. And they used to call me Drew. They called me Andy, and then they called me Andrew. This is back with Stone Ground, and Drew was like my nickname. And it's just somehow the name came about. It has nothing to do with me. It has nothing to do with basketball. But we came up with a character, and I did the cartoon for it. It was sort of a cross between Mr. Natural back in those days and Grandpa Stroman, just so we could promote it. We had the character on a rubber stamp that before we started playing, we had people stamp hands at bands and things like that. And we did cartoon strips and just things to promote it. I actually used that as a college assignment, promoting something like that. So I got my art talent in there somewhere. But anyway, it was just a fun way to do it.
Kind of gave your band an identity.
Yeah, and not a lot of local bands were doing identity, brand identity things
right
those days. So we had a good time. I had a good time from my vocation standpoint and from my avocation. So I had a great time.
What are some of your musical influences? Are there any groups or musicians that you really felt were inspiring in your
Well,
career?
As far as playing rock music, I would say, you know, when the Beatles and the whole English rock, we thought that was a pretty good way of doing it. And the Dave Clark Five were out around the same time, and they had a sax player in there. Also around soon after that, I really got interested in the Motown music. I got interested. There was a lot of variety at that time. Mm-hmm. There was a Stax Volt Review kind of Memphis soul things going on, mm-hmm. which lent itself very well to horns. And so it was just a wealth of music to get out there. And I mean, I wrote some stuff back in the college days, but not worth anything. But we did a lot of copy songs, and that's where you learn from playing. Mm-hmm. And we played pretty often. Most of the bands mm-hmm. I was with.
Mm-hmm. And I noticed Uncle Drew and maybe a lot of the bands that are in the Berks County Rock and Roll Hall of Fame like to play dance music, things that people can kind of like move to and have a good time.
Sure, especially when we did the club circuit. I mean, mm-hmm. people were out to party and to have a good time. I mean, I said we used to play 6 nights a week sometimes at the local and surrounding clubs, and we'd be playing out at Easter's Lounge back in those days. Mm-hmm. On a Tuesday evening, we'd play till 2 a.m, and the place would be packed. Yeah. And these people would get up for work the next day. I don't understand. I'm in bed by 10 o'clock. But it was a good time. There were a lot more places to play back then than there are now. And I think it was fun for Uncle Drew to get together. And in the audience, well, for the Magical History Tour, it's a great audience for that. But in our audience for the concerts that we came up with, we had tables of people that used to see us when we played in clubs, and there'd be a table over here with people that used to see us in high school. They'd get together, the high school friends, and then there was this other table that knew me from playing jazz and said, "What the heck is Mike doing? You know, singing David Bowie up there?" And some of my relatives would come out and say, "Is that what he was doing all these years?" You know,
that's so neat.
So it was fun. It was a big party, mm-hmm. and through the Magical History Tour, we being musicians that I played with, really got to know other musicians that were out mm-hmm. playing at the same time or later or earlier. And it became a nice meeting place for all of us. So it is a great event, mm-hmm. and for a number of reasons. Mm-hmm. But we feel very honored that the exhibit came up, that the concert series came up, mm-hmm. and that you're keeping it going.
Mm-hmm. It seems very collaborative now. I noticed that some band members are going from one band to the next, that they'll do a little stint in the middle of somebody's set. They'll jump on stage and
I see the one
band.
coming up. I'm playing in a horn section for one group,
uh-huh.
Guest horn appearance. I'm singing with another group, and I'm singing the national anthem coming up, which is
uh-huh.
I've never done that before. I hope I do it this year for the Phillies, but we'll see.
Yeah, it's fantastic. It's a really neat environment.
Yeah,
mm-hmm.
and and we get when the events aren't happening that you have a connection with, bands are getting together and playing other places too, mm-hmm. and it's good because we tried to get some people in our band, like the original bass player, and he passed away. He came to hear us and wanted to play with us and passed away, and our original keyboard player passed away. So those of us who are around now say, let's do it now. Mm-hmm. Let's have fun with it now. And this gives us a good opportunity to do it.
That's neat. That's such a neat... It's a nice demonstration of how history and music coming together can really kind of like revitalize a community and kind of inject some energy into the community. And that's really what we had hoped would happen with the Berks County Rock and Roll Hall of Fame and the Magical History Tour. So
yeah, we're really happy with Sim and you and the past people who have been involved with marketing it, and all the musicians that mm-hmm. chipped in the beginning. That we got it going. We didn't mm-hmm. know that it was going to be an annual event. Mm-hmm. And there are some people that say, I don't know, there's some people that are in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame because they played. And there were interesting things getting it going that people are addressing now to find out how to make it more fair, because not only the bands, I believe when they started it was bands locally from the mid-'60s to mm-hmm. mid-'70s. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of expanded branched out. So there are people that influenced Fred Bernardo and I. Now I talked about who my musical influences were, but there were local bands that Fred and I would go out and see and think, gee, mm-hmm. we want to be doing this. So there are a lot of local bands from the 50s that are being acknowledged now. Mm-hmm. There are bands that are playing now that may have had roots back in the between 60s and mid-70s, but are still playing. So I think you're continually looking at ways to make it a little bit more fair. I don't say fair, but that it becomes a little bit
inclusive. Yep, and you're part of that process. You're beyond just being a member of the Berks County Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. You're part of the committee that's helping to make some of those decisions. And,
we've started that, and there's some challenges we have, and I think what's going to happen is over the years, if you keep it going, it's going to get better and better. And I tell people that say, well, so-and-so wasn't, you should have thought that. And I said, give it time, keep voting. You do an online voting thing, and, I'm sure all these people will be recognized.
Over time.
It takes a while.
We have huge, really large lists of musicians, of Berks County musicians. So I think,
and you can't do them all at one time.
Yeah, no, we can't. So it'll be neat going forward to see how many we can add and learning their stories and kind of getting a sense of who all these people were and what they've contributed to the music scene. So.
I consider it an honor to be a part of this. And, I tell people I have my rock and roll, Berks County Rock and Roll Hall of Fame trophy. And at first people go, oh, Berks County? I said, well, and they said, yeah, well, that's quite an honor that nobody was honoring us for that up until this point. And we put a lot of time and effort into it over the years, and I think brought a lot of happiness to people in the clubs and the high schools and pool parties.
Definitely.
When we did the Uncle Drew reunion concert outside of here, we thought, gee, we better pick songs that people can identify with. We used to do some things that were maybe musician-friendly, but not necessarily club-friendly. So we picked some songs that people could sing along with. And, we made some mistakes, but nobody cared. They just thought it was a great time to be alive and to relive their past glories. And, it was good.
Yeah, music has that unifying thing where everybody can, has memories attached to it and can enjoy it together.
And I'm still playing. It's not like I'm living in that era, but it's fun to revisit it once in a while.
If you, could give advice to someone who is kind of getting started as a musician or learning to play, do you have any suggestions or words of inspiration for them?
Well, I'll practice for sure. And if you're starting and you don't think you're going to make it, that you're just not getting to that threshold, keep going a little further. I think you reach a threshold where all of a sudden, whoa, you're playing and you're reading music and you're stumbling through some rinky-dink songs and books and things like that. Stick with it for a while. And listen to a lot of music, all different kinds of music. Play along with records. Play along records. I don't know if you want to call them recordings. And listen to various influences and get involved. Perform for audiences. I'm a member of the Reading Musical Foundation board, and we're very proactive on. Did the light just go out, or did the?
I think it did.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think I'm still here. We recommend getting people involved in performance venues. Get out there and perform for people, even if you're very nervous about it. And you see that happening with the Berks Jazz Fest too, with that audience. They have nights where these young kids are coming up and they'll play and they'll labor through the solos, but I think they come out of it inspired and say, yeah, I could do that. And I think you need a momentum.
Right.
And you need to keep working. And I still practice every day. And it's not my, vocation. It's just for fun, as they say.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, thank you for that, and thank you for joining us, and thank you for all of your contributions to Berks County's music scene, to the history, and also to the History Center and the Berks County Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. We really appreciate it.
I appreciate the opportunity to do so. Thank you very much.